Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we're looking at a piece of hardware from HDTV Supply that sits in a weird gray area.
And I'm your resident hardware expert. Happy to be here.
Yep.
And yeah, it really does sit in a gray area.
It's the Kramer Electronics 50W, and on the surface, it looks like your standard speaker. But digging into the specs, our mission today is to uncover how it's trying to solve a very specific infrastructure problem.
Right. Exactly. Specifically, these are 5.25-inch two-way on-wall speakers. That on-wall part is your first big clue. This isn't just average living room gear.
Let's distinguish that right off the bat, because most home audio assumes you want things invisible, right? Like in ceiling or in wall.
Yeah, flush mounted. But these are distinct because they are fully designed to be seen.
Right. Enclosed in an ABS plastic cabinet with a steel grill. They stand out about 7 inches wide and maybe 10 inches high.
The logic here is usually retrofitting. Say you can't cut into the drywall because of brick or concrete or just budget constraints. Then on-wall becomes your best solution.
Yeah. Utility first. And looking at the driver composition, it seems to really prioritize durability over, audiophile nuance.
Yeah, you've got a polypropylene cone woofer and a Mylar tweeter.
Which are chosen for longevity, I assume.
Exactly. Mylar and polypropylene resist moisture and temperature shifts way better than paper cones or silk domes. This is a speaker built to survive in a restaurant kitchen or a humid warehouse just as easily as a standard living room.
But the real story here, the whole reason we're doing this deep dive on this specific model, is what's in the back panel. The transformer.
The multi-tap power transformer. This is the ultimate bridge between consumer and pro audio.
For the listener who hasn't wired a massive commercial space, we should explain why this switch matters. It has an 8-ohm setting and a 70-volt setting.
So think of 8-ohm as standard mode. You buy a receiver, run a wire to the left speaker, one to the right, and you're done. Works great for short distances.
But if you try to run that same wire 100 feet...
or daisy chain 10 speakers together, the system fails.
Right, the impedance gets too weird for the amp to handle. You basically blow the amp or lose all your volume.
Exactly. So that's where the 70-volt or 100-volt setting comes in. It changes the game entirely from managing resistance to managing voltage.
Which allows you to string dozens of these Kramer speakers together in a huge line without stressing the amplifier.
And that's exactly where the taps come in. You can physically set how much power each speaker pulls from that line.
Granular control. I see the specs say this model ranges from 2.5 watts up to 20 watts.
Right. So if you're wiring a large open concept floor plan, you can set the speakers in the loud, noisy kitchen to pull the full 20 watts.
And then set the ones in the quiet hallway to just 2.5.
All running off the exact same wire run.
Yeah.
It completely solves the zoning problem without needing 5 different amplifiers.
Let's pivot to the sound profile, though. Because 5.25 inches is a decent size for a woofer, but the frequency response only lists 80 Hz to 20 kHz.
That's the main limitation of the form factor. 80 Hz means you are fundamentally missing that bottom octave of sound.
So you aren't going to feel the kick drum in your chest. Don't buy this expecting a home theater rumble.
No, not at all. This response curve is explicitly tuned for clarity. Vocals, background music, paging systems.
Right. And with 30 watts RMS and peaks of 80 watts, it gets plenty loud to fill a room.
But it's designed to communicate, not to shake the floorboards.
It's a workhorse, not a show pony. Now, looking at the retail side from HDTV Supply, there's a really practical note for anyone planning a build.
Since you're usually buying these in arrays, you rarely just buy one.
Right, the costs add up fast. They do have a code listed 10% off, which is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, if you're buying 20 of these for a retrofit or a whole home project, that 10% creates a lot of budget breathing room.
Especially since you're effectively buying professional infrastructure. It really blurs the line between commercial and residential.
We are seeing a lot more of this commercial-grade flexibility entering the home space lately.
It's fascinating. And it brings us to a bigger question for you listening. We've been stuck on stereo and surround sound for decades.
But devices like this Kramer speaker suggest a shift toward distributed audio.
Exactly. Why have one massive stereo in the living room when you can have a 70-volt array covering every square inch of the house evenly? And taking that step further, if commercial tech is getting this accessible, are we looking at the actual death of the traditional 2-channel stereo setup entirely? Will future homes just have sound infrastructure built right into the walls like plumbing?
It's entirely possible. A shift toward ubiquitous coverage rather than a single sweet spot on the couch.
Something for you to consider before you cut your next hole in the drywall. That's it for this deep dive on the Kramer Electronics 50W. Thanks for listening.